A good tool is designed to make whatever job you're trying to accomplish a whole lot simpler. And two tools that are readily available everywhere you go nowadays, and you're going to need a lot around the house when you're trying to do rentals or any type of woodworking, are an impact driver as well as a drill driver. So what's up everybody? On today's video we're going to go over a little bit more in depth about these guys right here. Now what powers drills? Well, nowadays, most of the time you're going to see they're going to be cordless. And you can still find corded drills, but honestly, most of the time they're going to be relegated to the job site, and that's fine. Leave them there. Cordless tools have become so affordable over the last few years, and battery technology has gotten so good that honestly, cordless is going to be the way you're going to want to go. Doesn't matter if you're building stuff around the house, rentals, building the shed, deck, or if you're doing any type of woodworking, honestly, get a good set of cordless drills and you'll be set. When it comes to power levels of your drill, there's a couple things to keep an eye out for. You can get some 6-volt ones, those are going to be more of a powered screwdriver, and you can also get some 12-volt ones as well. Those are going to be more of just a light duty application. The most common ones you're going to find are going to be 18-volt drills like this guy here, this guy here. 90% of them on the market are going to be 18 volt, and that blends a very good balance of the amount of power you need with also a decent size and a lightweight to carry them around all day. Now the batteries that feed these guys are going to have some numbers on them as well that you're going to want to watch for. Now, there's a whole bunch of different sizes, but honestly the most common ones you're going to use around the house are going to be a 2 amp and a 4 amp. You can also get some 1.5 amp batteries, and those usually come in a bundled kit that you can buy at the store. Now the numbers it says on the side, like I said, you can have a 2 amp battery. This is 2, you can get 4, you can get 6, 8, but the larger the battery you go, typically the longer the battery life will be. In an 18 volt tool with a 2 amp battery attached to it, you can drill a lot of screws in before you ever need to charge this battery. But if you switch it out and you put a 4 amp battery in, this one's a much larger size. It's still 18 volts, but it's 4 amps. So the amount of actual capacity is a lot higher. Now our final thing about the motor is you can see these guys side by side. This one is a little bit smaller. Now this guy here is a brushless motor. This one here is a brushed. What does that mean? Typically a brushless motor is going to be a little bit more expensive to buy, but it is a little bit more high tech if you want. The brushless motor has no friction parts inside of it, whereas a brush motor has exactly that. There's brushes inside of it that are rotating around, creating a slight amount of drag. So more often than not, a brushless, because there's no friction, will be a little bit stronger with the amount of rotational torque that it can put out, and it'll be a little bit easier on batteries. It won't use as much power, so you can usually get a little bit longer work time out of the same 2 amp battery than you would in a brushed. Now when it comes to your drill components, you have a few of them. So you have your battery at the bottom itself. Working your way up, you have your trigger. Your trigger is going to be a pressure sensitive trigger. So the harder you pull on it, the faster your bit speed will be. Moving up from there, you have your forward and reverse switch. You can flip that literally by your finger and your thumb. And on top of the drill, you have your gear select. Now typically you're gonna have a 1 and a 2. One of them is going to be a high torque application. The other one is going to be a high speed application depending on what you're doing. If you're drilling holes, 99% of the time, you're gonna want a high speed. If you are attaching a fastener, more often than not, you're gonna want a high torque application with less speed. In front of that, this rotary dial right here is your clutch setting. Your clutch setting is going to adjust the maximum amount of torque that your drill can put out. So if you are driving in a fastener and it goes in too far, and if maybe you don't have the best trigger control out there, you can dial back the setting on your clutch, and you're just gonna play around with it until you get the maximum amount of torque that you want applied. Now that is great if you're setting a whole bunch of fasteners back to back to back to back. You don't have to worry about driving them in too deep. You can just hold the drill wide open. The clutch will stop you every single time. And the last thing in front of that is going to be your chuck itself. Your chuck is where you're going to load your bits into. Now most of the time a drill is going to have a 3/8 inch chuck. Now that basically means that once the jaws are wide open, how large of a bit can you put inside of it? You can use larger bits, but the actual chuck diameter that goes into the drill will always be 3/8 or smaller. Now when it comes to opening the jaws inside of the chuck on your drill, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can spin it by hand, but honestly it's going to take a long time because the jaws do open up quite far and they do spin pretty slowly. The faster way is using the forward and reverse switch on your drill. You're just going to hold the chuck itself and just turn the motor, and that will open the jaws and close the jaws a whole lot faster for you. Then once the jaws are open, you can take your bit, install it inside of the chuck, and then you can hold the chuck again while turning the drill in the opposite direction to tighten the jaws back up, holding onto the bit. And the last setting you might have on your drill, depending on the type of drill that you bought or the price point of drill that you bought, is you may have different modes. Sometimes those modes will be adjustable on the chuck itself to go into full drill mode or any type of clutch setting. Some of them, like on this guy right here, will have a switch. Now that switch will take me from a drilling mode to a driving mode to a hammer mode. That hammer mode is the last thing. Now, not all drills are hammer drills. This guy right here is not a hammer drill. This is just a basic drill driver. This one right here is a hammer drill. You can see the size of these two drills are different. This one here, again, is brushless, so it is a little bit smaller, but this one is larger because it has the hammer function. What the hammer function does is it allows you to drill through concrete, stone, tile, ceramic, anything that has a dense, hard, rocky type material. The hammer function lets you drill that. But you do need to make sure that you have a specific hammer drill bit into the drill when you do that. When you put it in hammer mode, the drill will audibly sound a lot different, but it also has the rotational torque force as well as an in and out hammering motion from the drill motor itself to basically pile drive that drill bit down into whatever you're trying to drill a hole into. But you don't really need that function unless you plan on drilling a whole lot of concrete or stone. You'll also notice on these tools you have work lights. There's going to be a whole bunch of different work lights depending on the type and the brand that you buy of drill, but more often than not you will have an LED work light to light up your area if you were nestled down into a corner and you're working in the dark. Now let's go over our impact driver. Now this guy here is going to be a lot different than your drill driver. Usually you're not going to drill a whole bunch of holes with this guy. You can, there are some bits that fit, but it's going to destroy that hole and is really rough. You're not going to want to do it unless you're doing some kind of framing, and the precision of the hole doesn't really much matter. This is going to be used primarily for attaching fasteners, but the way it attaches fasteners is quite a bit different than the actual drill driver. Now, if you've ever attached a lot of fasteners with the drill driver, you'll know that there's a lot of rotationary force. Once the bit or the screw stop or hit something hard like a knot, all that force gets transferred into your forearm and your wrist because the motor wants to keep spinning, and that can actually put a lot of force on your arm. That's why hammer drills like this guy will always come with a extra handle that comes off of here, so you have a secondary point of triangulation to hold on to the drill in case you hit something hard. An impact doesn't have that problem when it's attaching fasteners because the motor actually takes care of all that impacting force for you, and it alleviates a lot of stress out of your forearm. So if you're attaching a lot of fasteners, if you're building something humongous, you're definitely going to want an impact. They're a lot faster and a lot less stressful on your arm. The chuck on an impact is quite a bit different. It is just a collet that you can pull in and out. There's ball bearings inside of there that will collapse and expand. And that quick release collet lets you switch between bits really, really fast. You also have a pressure sensitive trigger, just like your drill before, so that is awesome. You still have a work light as well. Depending on the brand of impact that you're getting, it might look a little bit different, but the work lights are still there. And you also still have a forward and reverse switch just like before, and the exact same batteries, if it's from the same brand, that work in your impact will work in your drill. Some impacts as well will have multi-gears on them. Now this lets you adjust the maximum amount of impacts per minute, so as well as the maximum amount of torque that the impact puts out. So depending on what you're doing, if you don't have real good trigger control yet, you can use that right there to help yourself out. Now obviously you're going to need some bits to load into your drills to do a job. Now there's a pretty much unlimited supply of drill bits out there depending on what you're going to use. There's different diameters, but also different types. You got self-centering VIX bits, dimpler bits, countersink bits, masonry bits, Forstner bits, spade bits, brad pointed twist bits, and the actual drill driver bits themselves. I'm not going to go too much into the drill bits in this case, but like I said, pretty much if you need to load something into these drills, there's a bit for you. So I hope I was able to shed a little bit of light on drills and impacts for some of you out there and had a light bulb go on at least a couple people. Now, if you guys just recently purchased something, sit down and give it a good once over, spend some time with it, read the manual, make sure to check over all the functionalities and the switches and triggers and settings, and just go ahead and do some practicing with it. That's honestly the best way to learn anything, is to practice with it. Start small, work your way up, and you guys are going to be aces in no time with something like this. So if you guys like this video and you're not already a subscriber yet, consider subscribing. I would love to have you on board. If you guys learned something, thumbs up down below would be awesome too. I'd very much appreciate it. But otherwise, you guys, I will see you in the next one.